Curtis said, to say that, you know people that go to church but don't know any Christians has to be very insulting to your friends that practice Christianity. That was very unnecessary, just my opinion. I want to clarify that, Curtis, because that was not meant to offend anybody. Sherwin Hughes doesn't know any Christians. What I know and understand the Christian doctrine and how Jesus lived his life and how Jesus was very much for the downtrodden and the marginalized, I don't know anybody that lives that life. Because I also know a person that will call themselves a Christian and they go to church that hates gay people, or they hate these people, or they disparage these people, or they sin with the best of them and they think that they are covered in the blood of Jesus because maybe on occasion they'll ask for forgiveness. That to me is not Christianity. I do not know a human being that lives the way that they know they are supposed to be living. What will happen is they'll say, well, I'm a sinner too, and I have flaws. And then they think they can get away with anything because in their mind, they're a Christian. I don't know any Christians per the definition. Jesus would not be happy with a bunch of y'all, and you know that. Now, you have your own relationship with Jesus, and I'm not going to interfere with that. But Sherwin Hughes does not know any Christians. I do not know a human being who is so without sin nor flaw that I can look up to them as a beacon of hope. Because the thing about Christianity is that fake Christians hurt the Christian cause. Because the biggest hypocrites I've ever known, like they're mean, they're nasty, they're judgmental, they name call, and they think that they can get away with it because they have their own relationship with God. To me, that's something else. They use Christianity in order to manipulate other people. And the missionaries do it too. Oh, let's kill all these savages that don't want to be Christians, and those that don't want to die will save them. Like, that's not a good motto for a religion that's supposed to be about peace and loving your neighbor. We don't love our neighbors. Most of y'all don't even know your neighbors' names. So no, Sherwin Hughes does not know any Christians. I know people that go to church. On occasion. Here, I'll be clear. I don't even know people that go to church every Sunday. I don't know a single human being. I don't even know if I've ever met a person that goes to church every single Sunday. They'll say something like, I'm too tired. I can't go to church. Or here's what's worse. They really don't want to go to church. They don't want to. They got other stuff to do. They got to get stuff ready for Monday. The kids need this. They got to go to the store. They don't want to go to church, but they go anyway, begrudgingly and reluctantly. And so here's what I say to those people. God knows you don't want to be there, so why is you lying to him? Because you ain't doing it for him. Like, he knows you don't want to go, so what is you doing? I don't know any Christians. It's like saying, because somebody plays football very poorly, they're not good at football, and they don't play very often. They play when they feel like it or when it's convenient. It's the same as that person saying they're a football player. Not really, because you play football when you're not dedicated to it, you're not committed to it, you don't play by the rules of football. But because you happen to play, or maybe you have an affinity for the game of football, you can't call yourself a football player. You are someone that just happens to play football. Some Christians are people that just happen to be people that go to a Christian church. Or they think that by tithing, they can buy their way into heaven, I guess. That's a whole nother discussion. But y'all know how I feel about some of these religious discussions because people take it so personally. And one of the reasons why I believe some religious people take it so personally, and this is also another manipulation that they use. Maybe when they get saved, it helped them. It took them out of a dark time. They had nothing else. But they say that prayer is the last refuge of a savage. And so somebody was going through a really hard time, and they found Jesus, and they found hope, and it really turned their lives around. And now they're productive. Maybe they've healed from something, and they want everyone else to be saved like them. And it helped them. It got them out of a dark place into a better place. It helped them find salvation. It helped them find peace. It may not help me the way that it helped them because I didn't start from the same dark place they started from, you see. But then they get angry and become very self-righteous. Sure, when you need to get saved because it did all these things for me. And then that same person who is very happy that they've arrived at this new positive and productive plateau in their life, they get mad at me because I won't follow in their footsteps. Like they have anointed themselves a leader because of what Christianity or Jesus or the Bible or church or the pastor or prayer did for them. They don't have enough respect to see that things may not happen for me and benefit me the way they benefited you. And then they get angry and bitter, and now I am cast as a sinner. And Christians do that better than Muslims. Shout out to the Muslims. Bismillahir-Rahman-ir-Rahim. My Muslim people, they know what that is. I'll be talking to my Muslim people. They are more peace-loving than any stereotype would ever lead you to believe. Y'all know the Palestinians are my people. And I don't just say that because of the plight of the Palestinian people in the Middle East. The Palestinian Americans that I know that live in this country, that live in this state, that live in Milwaukee. Some of them are my best friends. I consider them like family. Some of them own businesses that make black people feel welcome. Shout out to them. They live their lives in a way that is righteous to where you want to be like them, but they don't say, oh, Allah brought me to this place. You need to worship Allah. They never say that. They just live their lives in a way that makes you curious as to what guidance they get. That's how you're supposed to do it. Christians don't know that because Christians also murdered people and conquered the world because they wear this righteousness. And then there's the Catholics. Catholicism was declining right at about the turn of the 20th century. People just weren't signing up to be Catholics anymore. It's very involved to be a Catholic. There's many things. You got to get confirmed and you got to take classes. You ever been to a Catholic wedding? It's a whole mass. I took communion once. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to. Did you guys know that? They did communion at a Catholic wedding. I was like, everybody else getting up and taking the cracker and the sip of wine. I was like, I'm thirsty. And then when people found out that I wasn't a confirmed Catholic, ooh, they got hot. I was like, what's the big deal? I thought it was symbolic. But here's the other thing. So I'm at this Catholic wedding. And the pews started clearing to get the communion, you see. And you know how the Catholic weddings are. You guys been to a Catholic mass? And Jesus came down from the mountain and he said, come to me, my little flock, and I shall guide you. It's very boring. And then they sing the songs. Please open your hymn books. Jesus said he came from the mountain. You know how the Catholic masses are. They're very boring. And so now we will have communion now. Please, row 1, please come up for the sacred sacrament of the communion. I'm in row 3. So I watch every single person in row 1 get up, form a line. I've never done this before. I'm like, hell, I'm here for the party. Right? When in Rome, do as the Romans do. And then every single person in row 2 also lines up. I'm thinking to myself, every single person in row 1 and row 2 isn't a Catholic. So I'm thinking it's not a Catholic thing. Here comes row 3. I'm sitting in the middle of row 3. All the people to my left stood up. All the people to my right stood up. Sherwin Hughes is still sitting down because at this point I'm very conflicted. And then the people to my left, they looked at me to get up because I'm kind of blocking the way because there's not a lot of space to walk through the aisle that separates the pews, you see. So I stood up. I was like, hell, let's go. And I followed the people in front of me. I'm looking to make sure I do it right because I can mess something like this up in grand fashion. So they're going and take the cracker and have a sip of the wine. And it's 3 people in front of me and they take the cracker and have a sip of the wine. Then 2 people, and the next person is me. I'm up. It's my turn. The one thing that I regret about it is I think because they put the cracker on your tongue, I stuck my tongue out a little too eager. And I got to remember, this is a Catholic priest. I might have, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to give him any ideas, you know? So I just like, here, put it on my tongue. And he put it on my tongue. And I got me a little sip of the wine, a little church wine. It was real wine, too. And I went back to my seat. And so at the wedding reception, some hours later, a whole bunch of people came up to me and said, "Oh, Sherwin, what church do you go to?" And I was like, I'll probably name some random black church I've been to a couple of times. And they're like, "Oh, well, that's odd because you're a Catholic." I said, "Oh, God, no. Why would you make that mistake?" Oh my God, Sherwin, you took communion and you're not a Catholic. Can you believe this? Sherwin took communion. No, I'm the bad guy. I had no idea. So in the turn of the century, the Catholics were having a bit of a PR problem, right? And so they needed a hero. They needed someone that was going to be the new, like, symbolism of Catholicism, not just in North America, but around the world. And so this is when they decided to select who? Christopher Columbus was going to be the newly selected, like, leader of the Catholic Church because of his historical input. And of course, Christopher Columbus was, in fact, a Catholic. Another thing about the Catholic, the Catholic Church is very much involved, very angered by Donald Trump's immigration policy, because you know that the vast majority of the people who practice religion who are from south of the border, they're all Catholics. Mexicans are Catholics. Panamanians are Catholics. People from Guatemala, Nicaragua, they're all Catholics. And so the Catholic Church is like, yo, we don't want to lose members. So a lot of Catholic churches are now operating as sanctuaries to people who are Catholics that fear being deported. So we're going to follow that story to see how much involved the Catholic Church is going to interfere with federal presidential power. So we'll keep our eye on that. So the Catholic Church was like, yo, Christopher Columbus is going to be our guy. And then we get a national holiday, right? Christopher Columbus. So I used to do this every observance of Christopher Columbus Day. Well, they now changed. I think we changed it officially in Wisconsin. It's now Indigenous Peoples Day because people started to read some of Christopher Columbus's diaries. He published his diary of what it was like to discover the New World. You guys know this? No, you probably didn't. If the Arawak natives are the ones that he encountered when he was in the Caribbean, namely the island of Cuba, and he made it abundantly clear, like, oh, these Arawak people, they're very proud people. And he talks about how sweet they were to him and to all of his crew that he brought. And they were like walking around naked, and they offered him like jewels, and they offered him all sorts of gifts. These are native people that have never seen a white person before in their life. And Christopher Columbus, like, these are the nicest people. They're not angry. They don't have any weapons. And Christopher Columbus was like, oh, they're going to make good slaves. And then when some of the Arawak men resisted being put into bondage, Christopher Columbus was like, oh, we just cut their hands off, right? That was the first thing. The other part about settling the New World was they wanted to profit. So Christopher Columbus, who was an Italian but sailed for Ferdinand, the Queen of Spain. So he was Italian, but he sailed for Spain and conquered the New World on behalf of Spain. That's why in those countries they speak Spanish, okay? That's a part of colonization. They speak the language of their oppressors, right? And so he was like, they made a bunch of trips back and forth from Western Europe to the New World because they would bring wealthy Europeans to the New World in order to sell the newly conquered land in the New World. They were trying to make a profit. And the currency was called a castellano. So a castellano was like the dollar, the currency that they used at the time. Follow me, I'm going somewhere with this, you Catholics and you Christians. Christopher Columbus said, and he wrote this in his diary, and none of this has been edited. You can go and look on the internet and read it yourself. I am not making this up because I have read his diary in the 15 years I've been doing radio. I probably read pieces of his diary for 10 of the 15 years I've been doing radio. He said, we would bring these wealthy men from Europe to the New World to encourage them to spend their castellanos on buying this land, which they can use for plantations, for growing tobacco. And we have slaves, and growing sugar cane, and growing rice and cotton. But he was like, for some reason, these men did not want to buy the land. They wanted to purchase the intimate company of 9 and 10-year-old little girls. Christopher Columbus says this in his diary, and he's like befuddled. He was like, I don't know why they want to buy the little girls instead of buying the land, but he was like, whatever they want to purchase, we are willing to sell them. Christopher Columbus essentially was the first human sex trafficker of children that we have documentation of because he wrote it himself. Now, when you think of some of the misgivings of the Catholic Church and their propensity to molest children, look at where it came from. So you have to wonder why the Catholics at the turn of the 20th century wanted Christopher Columbus to be their mascot and their new supporter or the person to galvanize more people to become Catholic. History is weird, and sometimes I wish I didn't know it. I'll take a break, come back. We'll talk about mass deportations on the other side.